My Traumatized Babies and Mentally Ill Barbies. Now, if you were to look back on this channel, probably over a year now, I'm not sure, you would see that there were book reviews on this channel. And I didn't really stop doing them because they weren't particularly performing well. It's just that I don't read as voraciously as other people, and also I kind of didn't like having to get through novels specifically to review them or to make something out of the fact that I had read them. And so just, I don't know, as part of the organic evolution of this channel, I had kind of stopped doing book reviews so much, A, because of that reason, and B, because also at the time I was still pursuing more traditional publishing, and it is technically bad form to review or critique other authors or writers while also pursuing traditional publishing. I disagree with this. And at this point, I've kind of tossed that aside. I will still query whatever I want to query. And if the fact that I have given honest critical reviews of other authors or writers completely stops me from ever having some sort of traditional book deal, I am perfectly fine with that. I think that's weird. I really do think that's weird. I kind of get where people are coming from, but at the same time, it's sort of a weird form. It's not nepotism, but it's just I don't want my peers to not be able to speak critically about me, that would somehow preclude them from me, potentially giving them opportunities or them passing me opportunities because we didn't kiss each other's asses all the time. That's odd to me. That's odd to me. It's dishonest. So I kind of never agreed with that, but I also understand within a business environment why it exists, but also I don't care. And so I just determined that I was going to say whatever the hell I wanted to say. And if that affects my publishing chances negatively, I don't give a shit. So that's why that happened, because I was also kind of talking about my own writing projects. And then I was also I've been interested in tarot and magic for most of my life, but I wasn't really making content about it or talking about it very publicly. And so I even forgot why I started doing the tarot more regularly. It just seemed like something fun, to be honest with you. And to me, tarot is not separate from writing and reviewing novels, because this is all essentially storytelling. The biggest difference between me writing a fictional, telling the truth within fiction or telling the truth within a tarot reading, is that a tarot reading is more a true story or something that will be manifest, but we can argue the point that fiction becomes manifest, especially if you yourself write fiction. You will know that the things you write, the essence of them, tend to come true in some way. And that has been true of pretty much everything I've ever written, to an extent. So to me, there's not much difference other than when I am reading tarot, I am translating real energy to the best of my ability. It's not fiction, that is true, but then I can only communicate the truth to the best of my perceptive abilities and translation abilities, which is also based on my life experience through my perspective. So to me, none of this is unrelated. However, a book review is something a little bit different for what I predominantly post on the channel. So of course, this would be a second post of the day. And typically the books that I am going to be reviewing are either going to be horror, fantasy, weird fiction, or if it's another type of fiction, it's going to have a darker edge to it, like a thriller, or if it's a contemporary, it's going to be something a bit odder or off the beaten path. So today We are reviewing a romance novel, and that romance novel is called Gothicana. Now, I'm hoping that the little YouTube whatever picker picks one of these, right? One of these little poses while I'm holding up the book. Hopefully, because I don't feel like making a thumbnail, so I'm just gonna pick one of the ones that it gives me. Hopefully it picks one of these, right? Like that would be optimal if it picked one of those. So this is Gothikana by RUNYX. Obviously, the author's real name, RUNYX. And here's the thing. The work that I sold when I was way more like entrenched within the publishing industry and the writer world, doing all of that stuff. Not that I've particularly stopped, like I still write, but I'm just not as gung-ho about, you know, networking and all of that stuff within traditional publishing. Back when I was selling more and querying more, it was within the romance industry. So I am not someone who shits on romance, okay? But I will say that as I grew as a writer, I did grow away from genre romance. Though I don't think I don't know, I just think it has its place. I think most things within the writing world has their place, even if we don't personally like it or we think it's poorly written. When I give something a poor review or a largely critical review, I am still aware that someone who perhaps listens to that review, they might like enjoy hearing a roast or enjoy hearing the criticism, but someone listening to the criticism will still be like, that sounds amazing for me, even though that person didn't like it, and I'm gonna go get that book, because that is the entire reason why I even read the Throne of Glass series at the time that I wanted to read it. I heard enough people roasting it, and I was listening to that, and I was like, that actually sounds like something I feel like reading right now. And at the time, it was. I enjoyed the experience for what it was, though I'll say, if you've ever read the Throne of Glass series, I did not care about Selena, Sardothian, blah, 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 blah. Did not give one rat shit about her. I liked, I don't even forget the name of this girl now, but she was like the girl who hung out with, like, I liked the witches, right? And I forgot the head witch's name. I liked all the plot lines with the witches. And then there was one girl who, like, I think was like related to the witches, but she technically wasn't a witch, and she had like a disability, and she was having a romance with like one of the guys who was like a villain, but then he redeemed himself. Like, that was who I liked. I didn't care about anybody else. But that series was like the most enjoyable, like right around the middle of it, and then it kind of crashed and burned. And the beginning was kind of like not so great either. But it was fun for what it was. So Gothicana, like, here's the thing. You're either in the mood for this, you either are going to like this, it's going to be for you, or it's going to be absolutely not for you. And here's how you will know if this book is for you. The heroine's name is Corvina, and Corvina has purple eyes. The hero's name is Vad, V-A-D, and Vad has silver eyes. Vad refers to Corvina as little crow or little witch, and Corvina refers to Vad as the devil, the silver-eyed devil of Varenmore. Okay, now Varenmore is some sort of like specialized university that is on top of a mountain. And I'm still not, I don't know if I wasn't paying attention in the novel or if they just never really referenced like what are the qualifications to be accepted into Varenmore, but it's only certain people who are accepted into Varenmore, and I'm not sure of the admission standard. I'm really not. And Corvina basically got in because like Vad saw her when she was much younger, and there was a prophecy about him kind of being with her, or her being like important to him. And so he was like, I must like accept her into my university where I can monitor her. And so this is, on top of all of that, a student-teacher romance. So it's slightly edgier, but here's the thing. The way that they get around like the ethical issues around writing a student-teacher romance, which I kind of don't care about that, as long as it's not totally disgusting, right? As long as like nobody's like totally underage. I wouldn't have cared if they would have kept it like a regular, like academic professor-student romance. I'm fine with playing around with that sort of thing in fiction. I don't mind it, but like a lot of people get upset when people start playing around with power dynamics in that way. I understand the argument, it just doesn't bother me. So the way that they get around the ooginess of some of that is they make her older than most of the other student body. So she is 21 and Vad is 28. That's really not much of an age difference at all for everyone being an adult, right? But the thing is, when you're reading the book and they're at this university, it reads like they're in high school. Like they seem like they're taking high school level classes, and the lifestyle that they are leading is very boarding school, high school. That's how it comes across. So it's sort of like we're getting around the grossness of having a student-teacher romance within a high school setting by just aging everybody up and putting it into university. So there's that. And then now also, this will also tell you whether or not you will be enjoying this book or you would want to burn it to the ground. There is a scene towards the beginning of this book where the heroine late at night is wandering out of her room, and this university is in a Gothic castle, of course. She's wandering in one of the other towers in the castle late at night, and of course, like I'm pretty sure she's in like a flowing nightgown, you know, naturally, as one does. And she is lured into this tower, of course, by beautiful music being played on a piano. Now, who do you think is playing this music on this piano in the midnight hour? Yes, of course, it's Vad. Vad, we have a heroine stumbling upon the hero playing melancholy music on the piano, and she's just like, what are his thoughts, I wonder? He broods so, like, it's very much that. It's very much if you are wanting kind of the very, very cheesy, like, brooding Gothic hero with, like, this heroine is kind of, like, it's very, I'm not going to be able to say what I want to say without sounding insanely, like, horrendously classist about it. But it's like there's a certain type, like if you are a certain type of girl, woman, or femme, like that would be reading this, like you would come from a certain socioeconomic class and you would be having a fantasy about someone coming from a drastically different type of socioeconomic class. So this is like a lot of like, you're just gonna have to, you either want to live that fantasy that I just described to you out of the totality of everything I've said, or you kind of find that revolting. And I don't necessarily find any of that revolting, but it's also at this point in my life, not my thing. Like every so often, I'm just sort of like, oh, I really want to read a romance. I want to pick up a romance. I'm kind of tired of reading like horror or like something that's, I know it's rude, but like a bit more intellectually challenging. I just want something where I can just enjoy myself and kind of shut my brain off. For me, this wasn't really that thing. for me, the type of romance that I'm looking for, like something I enjoyed that was much lighter. It wasn't even horror. I loved Legends and Lattes. Okay, and that wasn't like, that was like kind of an extremely light romance. Like I would like hazard to even call that romance. But like that was pleasant. But what I enjoyed about Legends and Lattes was more like the atmosphere, and I liked that it was about like building like a very cozy, cute, small business. I loved that. And I loved the writing in Legends and Lattes. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he wrote a sequel, so I'm gonna have to pick it up. Another romance adjacent book that I enjoyed, again, like you can hardly call it romance, Goth by Otsuichi. I'm pretty sure I'm pronounced probably incorrectly. You can probably still find that review on this channel. I'm pretty sure I didn't take it down. But again, it's very, like, it's a strange type of romance, and it's never like really culminated at all. But like you can tell that like there are those vibes going on, but it's a distinct type of category, and it is definitely not this. So if you have not been completely turned off by everything that I just described about this book, the scenes in it, the romance scenes, this is a spicier heat level. It's not the absolute spiciest of the spicy, and there aren't tons of scenes in it, but the scenes are fairly regular and they are fairly graphic, okay? They are not especially kinky. It's fairly vanilla. They kind of leave that sort of stuff for the student-teacher dynamic, though there are a couple of things that I guess somebody would label as a bit kinkier. But like if you're into super, super spicy, you would be bored by this book. Also, this is the type of, like when they say a brochure, like a tale of dark romance. So what they mean by that is, besides the sort of courtship going on between our two characters, which, to be honest with you, does not have a lot of tension in it. Like, there is no point in this book where there's like a true dark moment. Like, there is one kind of, there's like a moment where it's like, oh no, what's going to happen? But not really. Not really. You're never all that concerned about like them not having the happily ever after or the happy for now. The darkness that is going on in this book, besides the like more gothic setting, is the fact that this book deals with things like people self-deleting. That happens, or is like, it's mentioned a couple of times in the book, and then it happens on the page once, I'm pretty sure. But there's like an issue going on in the campus of people self-deleting. There's an issue going on the campus of like people disappearing every year. Oh, by the way, there is also like a ball. I forget if the ball is every year, but it is called the Black Ball. And of course, everybody has to get into fancy clothes and like go to the ball. Okay, you know, it's like, we gotta have that. We gotta have that. So people go missing every year at the Black Ball. Hello, Dasha. Have you come? You've got your butt. Please. No. Get out of here. Spank. So every year people go missing at the Black Ball, and this is because like there's like a rumor about like when we start getting into these names, y'all, there was something that went on like in the past that involved these people called like the Slayers, and the Slayers like abducted people and like killed them, but it's all like people kind of don't know, and it's a big rumor, but like people go missing. And just, here's the thing, there were certain bits in this novel. Hey babe, what are y'all doing? Being wild. There were certain bits in this novel that were actually like interesting before they started getting into like the corny names like the Slayers and like all of this. But there was, at the very beginning, something that, like, there was like this mysterious figure in like a cabin in the woods, and it was very Blair Witch Project, and I was like, oh my God, like, I actually might be interested in this little mystery that's going on here, because there was also like this tree that had an eye carved in it, and I was just like, oh, like, we're going with like potentially black magic and cult vibes and things like, and I'm, you know, you're gonna get me with that, all right? That's right up my alley. But then, like, that little interesting bit is sort of like one mention. And here's the thing, this is unfair of me to kind of say, because this is a romance novel. It gets exceptionally less interesting to me because it's sort of like, yes, there is this mystery going on that is interspersed within the book, but predominantly what the book becomes is just Vad and Corvina having like carnal trysts together, okay? And so if that is what you want, this is the book for you. That's not especially what I wanted. Like, I don't mind a little romance, but for me, I want like the mystery played up. I want the, if we're dealing with a cult or the occult, I want like the fantasy occult played up. I want like, you know, maybe like some weird horror thrown in there. And I want to get like way more into sort of like the occult investigation, right? Like what's going on. I want to explore that aspect of it with a more little like maybe smattering of romance thrown in. And I could give or take like a sex scene. If you got rid of all the sex scenes, like I wouldn't care. But I will say, from the perspective of a romance writer or someone who has written romance in the past and has read it more in the past, I will say that the way this novel is structured with the courtship, I don't think it's that skillful, because typically if you are writing, let's say, a sweeter romance, so you're not writing like any super spicy scenes, not on the page, what you're doing is ramping up the romantic tension within the novel. So like your hero and heroine meet, and then the courtship starts, and it's like the way you're ratcheting up the tension is like, oh, they touched hands. Oh, like there was a kiss. Oh, they had to stay in a hotel, but there was only one bed. Like, you know, it's that thing. And then it's like the, ooh, are they or aren't they going to in this scene? Or will they or won't they? How far are they going to go? And then if it's a very sweet romance, when you ultimately have the culmination of those characters together, it sort of is like a fade to black scene. Now, if you're having a spicier romance and they are going to be getting into bed on the page and fairly quickly, the way that you're handling that tension is that you're progressively making the scenes increasingly spicy. So you start off at a certain level of spice, or you're starting off with foreplay, and then things get more aggressive as you go. And that's how you're dealing with tension. Because for me, romance and horror are the exact same genre. They are both courtship stories. One, like the catharsis or the culmination is of love, and one catharsis or culmination is in fear or death. One is life, one is death, but it's almost the exact same structure, because in horror, instead of ramping up the tension, generally, if it's a commercial horror, between the two lovers coming together, it's the thing that is creating the horror. You are escalating the tension between like the viewpoint character or characters and the thing that is terrorizing them. But it's still courtship to me. It's still a tease. It's still building tension through the ratcheting up of the extremity of the scenes. And so for me, this falls flat, because once we get to the first, like we're actually culminating their spiciness together, it stays fairly flat. It's sort of the same scene over and over and over again. And there's also no real threat that these people aren't going to be together. Not anything that has any teeth anyway, because like there's sort of this little thing that the author plays with where like, oh, can we actually trust Vad? Is Vad in fact the villain? But it never goes on long enough or convincingly enough for us to be actually concerned that that is the case. And it's the same thing with the dark moment in this book, or the black moment. If you don't know what that is a point that exists in most genre romance novels or stories in general, not always, where it's like, oh my God, the lovers have been torn asunder. Like there's some sort of central conflict. It's usually happening after the lovers have professed their love, they've cemented that, but then something tears them apart. And the thing that makes, from my perspective, really great romance novels, one factor is that the dark moment or the black moment is very convincing. And not only that, but the author draws the lovers back together also as convincingly. Like it can't be a cheat. Like the dark moment has to be real, and then the reunion of the lovers has to be as skillfully done. That's one thing that makes a good romance for me. The second thing, like it's not really in a hierarchy, but one of the other things that makes a really good romance is that our characters start off in one place, and then through their union with each other over and over and over again, and through the conflict of the story that they are handling together, and through the conflict that they are ultimately experiencing with themselves, and then the conquering of that conflict, they have become different. And usually also, since romance is a positive genre, they have also become better people in that they have become more whole people. That's typically what I am looking for in what I consider a really excellent genre romance novel. And then also, I'm typically going to be going for paranormal romance, fantasy romance, sci-fi romance. And when it's one of those three, I am also looking for a really good mix of world building as well. Romance gets a lot of shit for being really formulaic, and I understand, right? Because they're all courtship novels. That's not going to go too many different ways. However, when you have something that has a very strict structure like that, you tend to get really creative things out of it, depending on how you're playing with that structure. And so if you think it is extremely easy to write a good to excellent romance novel, you would be wrong. And especially if you are writing any type of paranormal, fantasy, or science fiction romance novel well. Why? Because the courtship with the two lovers, that for a genre romance, that has to be 50% to more of your novel. So now we're going to throw in the world building for sci-fi, fantasy, or paranormal romance. You've got to be able to create a convincing world as well as a convincing romance. That is difficult. It's very difficult to balance all of those aspects out. And so when someone does it very well, I'm impressed by it. Other people may not be. I am. Because I've done it. I know how hard it is. And just by the by, while anyone can shit out a romance novel, yes, and throw it up on Amazon just over and over and over again and play the numbers, it is a much different thing attempting to write a romance novel and also get it traditionally published. People who read romance novels are looking for a specific thing and a very specific voice. And when I read it, I can tell, I'm like, oh, that person has the romance voice, and I can't describe it to you, but Throne of Glass woman, who I am not going to remember her name right now. Oh, that bugs me so bad. But anyway, the woman who wrote the Throne of Glass series and also the, oh God, it's the fairy books that I'm not gonna, she's writing urban fantasy right now. Anyway, if you look up Throne of Glass, you will find out her name. I'm just saying, when I read her, I was just like, oh, she's gonna blow, the tone that she is writing in is the tone and is the voice of extremely popular romance novelists who blow the hell up for the most part. And I don't know how to describe it, but if you read her work, especially the stuff with like the fairies and the more like urban, like they're not calling it urban fantasy anymore, it's like contemporary fantasy. It's urban fantasy, okay? It's the same thing, but she's writing it now, which like I was kind of down for Throne of Glass at the time. I wouldn't be down for that now. But when I tried to read her, I was just like immediately hate this. I immediately hate this entire thing, but people love it. And I understand why people love it. I don't, but like when I read it, I go, oh yeah, this one, that's what this type of reader wants. And I wish I could describe it to you in words. I really wish I do. My favorite romance author while I was reading the genre was Karen Marie Moning. I really liked her Highlander stuff, and I loved her urban fantasy. It's like the Fever series, okay? But like seriously, extremely heterosexual. All right, if you're not down for the extreme hetero-ness of what's going on in those books, like just forget about it, okay? Just forget about it. I probably could not read it now and be fine with it. But at the time, I enjoyed it because it was the first time that like she blew my mind. Like I didn't think about this in the Fever series, because usually when there's a love triangle going on, right? It's like there's the heroine, and then, you know, there's the good guy, right? And then there's the bad boy. And we all know, like, we might have a little flirtation with the good guy, like, in the story, right? But ultimately, in the fantasy, we're going, it's no competition. It's the bad boy, 100%, all the time, bad boy. Now, we got to redeem the bad boy, of course, but get that good guy, right? Get out of here. We don't want you in the fantasy novel. We want you in real life. In a fantasy novel, get the hell out of here. Bad boy. So when I read the Fever series, it was the first time that someone had gone, the hell with the good, like, boy in the triangle. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have the heroine, we're gonna have the bad boy, and then we're gonna have the badder boy, and also the badder. And I was just like, oh my God. Genius. I was just like, I'm really torn now. Do we want the bad boy or the badder boy? Like, which one? And then, like, she makes it real easy for you to decide, okay? Like, one of them crosses the line, and, like, it's just, okay, well, that decision just got incredibly simple. But if you don't like playing around with, like, the extreme, like, alpha, like, just... It's ridiculous. It's very camp is what I'm saying. But if you're down for it, you're like down for it. And the Fever series is a bit darker than like the Highlander series. The time traveling Highlander stuff is very cheesy and like wholesome and like cute. And then the Fever series is more like her like dark stuff. But at the time that I was reading romance, I preferred her. I preferred Karen Marie Moning, and I even liked what she had started doing. She like concluded the Fever series, and then she was writing in the same world with another character. And then her fans totally like screwed everything up because they just wanted, like the heroine from the original Fever series is called like Michaela Lane. For some reason, people get really, really attached to certain characters, and they only want like books written with that character like over and over and over again. That is incredibly boring to me. Like the longest your series should be featuring like one character is 4 to 5 books. That's it. After that 5th book, it's sort of like you can't help but jump the shark. And you can look at it with most of the long-running like urban fantasy stories. After the 5th book, it typically jumps the shark and gets real stupid. And so Karen Marie Moning, I thought, did it really right, because she stopped with that character at like, I'm pretty sure it's the 5th book. And then she was writing in the same world. It was the same universe, but she was following different characters. And it was an awesome, like, it was an awesome move, and it was an awesome story, but the fans got all upset, and they were like, no, we don't want, like, the new, we want Michaela back. And I was like, Michaela's done. She's flop era now. And then, like, I stopped reading it because the publisher probably put pressure on her and they made her go back and write like essentially more Michaela Lane books. And I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm done with this, because they forced her to like awkwardly write off the character that she was going to follow and like bring back Michaela. And I was just like, y'all ruined it. Y'all ruined it because she had the right idea and y'all ruined it. So anyway, I've gone off on it. I'm saying we've gone off on a total tangent. I have gone off on a total tangent. But I mean, there's not really much to discuss about this book. You're either going to be here for it or you're not going to be here for it. I would say though, if like, you know that you are someone who, when you want to read a romance novel, even if you're reading something that is slightly darker, you do not want to read something that is going to spike your anxiety, because that's a very valid thing. A lot of people turn to romance and specific romances in general because they are fluff comfort reads. Like, the world is hard enough, right? So a lot of people, when they're turning to something like romance or specific types of fantasy, they want a comforting world. They do not want a lot of dramatic tension because they've got enough of it in their own lives, right? So they're looking for complete escapism. If you are looking for a predominantly comfort-based read that also features darker elements and a darker setting, this is perfect for you. What I will also say is that the heroine is managing, I guess, a light form of schizophrenia, but they kind of like, they're kind of not, like, the author isn't definitively saying whether it is actually schizophrenia or if this is just her mystical ability, because that's never actually firmly declared in the book, is if she is having actual psychic ability, which it seems to me that she is, or if it is actually just schizophrenia. And it seems like potentially it's a mix of both. If not, it's not schizophrenia at all, and it's just mystical ability and psychic ability. And like, but we're living, like, this book is taking place in like the real world. And so people aren't like in this world going, oh, ghosts are real. Because even like the things in this book that they're sort of teasing as could potentially be like magic or something like that going on with like the occult or like a cult. Spoilers, well, I only give spoiler reviews pretty much on this channel. It's not like, there's no like what's actually going on in this book, which I'm not going to say like why the killings are happening or who is doing the killings, but like, it is not magically based. It is not supernatural. So they're kind of teasing this supernatural stuff within the book, and then the ending is pretty much completely mundane, though it seems like I would guess they're going to have maybe more in this universe or more with these two characters. I don't know. And then like whatever Corvina is dealing with might be established later, but I would assume that like Corvina and Vad would become side characters, and maybe there are going to be other people that we are exploring within like the realm of Varanmore as a university, right? Because we're going to have a cast of like rotating students and other teachers, or like completely different dynamics entirely. Like it's a student-student romance or something like that. I will also say, as like the writing in this is very cheesy, okay? Like it is, the cheese goes to 11 with the way these characters are talking to each other and with the dirty talk within the scenes. Like, so I was sitting there reading these scenes like, did not like, okay? But again, if you're into that, you're into that. But what this book also does, I adore, okay? I adore that the author like had the fucking balls to do like all of this stuff in one book. And the end of the book, okay, you find out that Corvina has in fact written like this, like Gothicana is the novel that Corvina herself wrote, which is a fictionalized account of everything that went on in Varanmore, and she is a published author by the end of this book, reading, like you're reading the book that like she wrote, like kind of. And then also, hold on, let me see if I can like actually get it. Like, cause I was just like, I can't believe you actually did this, like for serious, and like it's in print. Okay. So here, you can't read that, right? This says, how it ended, ... So we're at the end of the story, right? How it ended, ... Or did it? Like literally the end. Or is it? Like, they did that. They did that and it was published. I don't want to hear anything from agents ever going, you can't do prologues. Like, you can't put this stupid stuff in here. You absolutely can. They are lying to you. If they know they can make a profit off of it, they are going to put it in print, okay? I don't want to hear about any of that anymore because that is goofy. That is absolutely goofy, but I respect RUNYX, the author, for doing that, because putting all of that into one book, the absolute guts, balls, and spine that they had to have to put that in there, seriously, respect. Mad respect. I would die of embarrassment. I could not do that. That is mastery level confidence on the page, okay? And I'm not being ironic. I'm being completely upfront about that, because that book, like, to me, even though it is not my thing at all, this book is written very genuinely. And if this is your genuine, authentic thing, then yes, I would say please go out and buy this book, because as well, also something I very much appreciate, like, I'm not really someone who needs a lot of like trigger warnings and content warnings, but RUNYX also includes, right before the beginning of the book, since it is a darker romance, all of the trigger and content warnings of things that we're dealing with in the book, especially if you're someone who tends to want a fluffier read, right? So if you are someone looking for romance and you would like to be like a little on the dark side, right? But not for real. Not for real. Not like super, super edgy, not super, super stressful. And it's not really a hurt comfort read. It's not, but it's very much like the style of this. It's like if you're someone who enjoys the fantasy of being like someone, oh, no one will ever love me because like I have like really aggressive mental health issues, or I come with a lot of baggage, and like the fantasy being fulfilled is that there's this super hot brooding guy whose baggage kind of matches your baggage, and also he's super rich, and he's also kind of super your teacher, and also kind of super your daddy, and also super kind of your dom, who is fulfilling all of those roles for you and will never ever leave your side and is like taking care of you for the rest of your life, and you never have to worry again. Gothicana is for you.